What's going on, guys? Big brother Kevin from the Men of Now. If you've been following us for the last 4 weeks, we've been doing a series on pickup artists, red space, manosphere, and where it's evolving to today from the 90s to now. However, we've had some very important things happen in our nation on Saturday, and we all know what that is. It was the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. So we're going to talk about that instead. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm your big brother, Kevin. Like I said in the intro, we're going to switch from our series that we've been doing and talking about some of the events that happened over the weekend with Donald Trump and how it's been played out to the media, some of the facts that are there, some of the facts that aren't there. Before I do that, I want to bring in two really good friends of mine. First is Josh, better known as Renegade Wingman and member of Men of Now. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
I can't have a bad day anymore. It doesn't exist in my vocabulary. So I hope you're doing best on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, no, got good weather, and just definitely happy to be here and be keeping current and talking about excited for today's topic.
Yeah, and always with us, Alex Hudsman. We know him as Huds and member of Men of Now. Alex, how you doing, sir?
Dude, doing fantastic. It is crazy. I think we're living in a simulation, truly. I mean, even when you think about it, Donald Trump, you got Trump, and then he picked Vance. So Trump, Vance, TV, it's all a TV show. And we're just here viewing the entire thing play itself out.
Yeah, well, I'm sure some of the media are happy the way things are going because it gives them a lot of stuff to talk about and a lot of things to bring up. But the most important thing right now is what happened on Saturday. And that is, everybody knows, it's all over the news. Everything's coming out every day. There's new facts, new conspiracies. And in the days and weeks to come, it's just going to continue. However, I wanted to talk with you guys about where we're at now and some of the things I found out today and some of the things I already knew, but they just came to light today. And that was how it all went down and the certain circumstances that were in place that made it possible for this shooter to do what he did. And the first one is where the shooter was a building that was outside the perimeter of the event itself, not far out. However, that part of the land was being covered by the local police department, not the Secret Service. And 30 minutes before the shooting happened, one of the local police officers noticed the kid acting suspicious by himself and reported it as a suspicious person. However, nothing was done. After that, 15 minutes later, the same cop sees the same person with a viewfinder or a distance measurer, like somebody would use in golf. Now, this is not a device that can be misinterpreted as binoculars. They look totally different. It is a distance measurer very distinctly. Same cop reports it, nothing's done. About 5 minutes before the shooting, the same officer sees the same person. Now he has a backpack. Now, this is 3 times the local police department see a suspicious person, but nobody engages them. What do you guys think about that?
So it's interesting because they didn't engage the shooter himself, but they did attempt to, I guess they took a photo of him and they attempt to send it above, like through the chain of command to somebody to take care of it. I don't know if it's that they didn't have cell reception within the metal building that they were in or like what was going on, but they did try and notify, but it just seemed like all these different organizations involved were just discombobulated.
Yeah, and that's something we'll get to here in a minute. Of why communications through radio, which is what police officers and Secret Service use as their main source of communication, on why that might have not have happened. But then also we find out that there was a local sniper team that was staged inside the building that the shooter was climbing on. Now, why they were staged inside, whether it was supposed to be rapid response, whether it was supposed to be just in case of emergency, I wouldn't know. However, having a military background myself, I would think that any uniformed police officer would be pulling some kind of security or perimeter duty at that time, not sitting inside a building, not aware of what's going on outside.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like the thing I've been saying a lot the last 4 years, where it's like, look, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but if I had to pick one, certain elements just seem to line up where it's like, clearly intent was meant to happen here. And so, I don't necessarily think it was necessarily like incompetence on the security detail side. It just sounds a lot to me like somewhere in the chain, right, it was made very clear that, hey, this event is going to proceed, because if you're telling me that police and a counter sniper team have both eyed a suspicious individual for approximately 28 minutes before they wind up pulling the trigger, there's plenty of time in there for a very quick and swift decision to be made. And especially for me, because I was in Washington, D.C. during 4th of July, and I happened to be at a very cool venue that's overlooking the National Mall and everything. And so just even casually glancing around, because it's White House within perimeter, right? You've got teams of snipers on every single roof scouting everything consistently. Mm-hmm. So you're very hyper aware of what the situation is and what's happening. So in reality, it sounds like again, to me, this is just my own sort of gut feeling. Something doesn't feel right. That just feels like, hey, this guy was gonna pull the trigger and make his attempt regardless of what was being reported by the ground forces. But to me, that's just more of my take on it, because again, if you got both local police and counter sniper teams that have marked the same suspicious individual for almost 30 minutes straight, seeing everything that this guy is doing, and somewhere up the line the command to go take action doesn't come out, that just to me just seems a little bit suspicious. But again, new facts may come out, so I may be proven wrong, but at least my initial reaction right now is more of like, all right, it just seems like there was a conscious effort to let this event play out.
Yeah, especially when they saw him with a backpack. A simple Terry stop on the guy, a consensual conversation with him, asking him, "Can I search your backpack? Can I see what's in there?" Now, he would have been well within his rights to say no. Fourth Amendment, you're not committing a crime, but it would have thwarted the incident right then and there, and it didn't happen. Now, that's a coulda, woulda, shoulda that any of us could say. Let's fast forward to 2.5 minutes before the shooting. Bystanders see him low crawling up the sloped roof with a weapon, and they try to alert police. And one of the guys I saw that was interviewed said he felt he was ignored by local police. And this is 2.5 minutes before the shot ran out. What do you guys think of that? That's where my main disconnect comes in with this whole incident. When you have bystanders that are seeing the gun, seeing the weapon, we see in the video, they are alerting police almost face to face, and they're being ignored.
Quite frankly, I think it's something that we talked about prior to this show, backstage. I think that nobody wants to get involved anymore.
Yeah,
that's really what it comes down to. They'd rather wait for something to happen and react. Mm-hmm. This entire thing was reactionary. I can't even think of words right now. Sorry, guys. Proactionary?
Yeah, instead of being proactive, they were to be reactive. And, something I thought about too is this is on a Saturday. So a lot of these local police probably had the day off. And they had to work there, so they might not have wanted to be there. Not an excuse, but I try to think of all the factors. Now you fast forward even after that,
Yeah, and again, to me, it just doesn't make sense that, if you have a sniper team inside of a building, you're going to let a random person crawl on top of that building. Like
Yeah.
somehow everyone just collectively dropped the ball where,
It's
again,
one area that's separated from everything else, the entire crowd. It's not even within the venue, and you got just one random person snooping around. Like, come on, what are we doing
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
So to me, it just, again, just feels a little bit fishy where, again, if you're locking down any type of area and providing security and, you have, forces or assets deployed inside of a structure, you're going to let somebody else get on top of that structure without anybody noticing, anybody else being aware, or again, anybody, being called to action to investigate, especially after this person has been spotted and flagged for, again, 28 minutes. There's a lot of, it's like a lot of negligence has to really happen. So it's like one of those things where it's like, either on the one hand, okay, it's definitely, some type of conspiratorial event, or on the other hand, it's just the negligence and incompetence was so bad that this slipped through and fell through the cracks. But either way, it's definitely a very, eye-opening incident for sure.
Yeah. It
It
shows
reminds
how
me.
easy.
Let me just speak
No,
on
go
this
ahead.
for 1 second. It reminds me of when segregation of duties in a company becomes toxic, and this is a clear example of that. Where local law enforcement were in charge of that one building, and then Secret Service and everybody else is in charge of everything else. But they're not communicating. The two groups are not communicating effectively to one another. And because of that, they need to wait for the go ahead from their boss, who has to talk to the other boss, who has to talk to the other people. Like it's too many steps to accomplish something that should have been very, very simpler. But I do have to say, with the way that it all panned out, whether it be the grace of God or what,
Yeah.
it worked
Well,
out. It worked
I'm sure
out
the
for them.
family of that fire chief is not thinking the grace of God. I mean, that guy was a hero in my book. My heart goes out to
Yeah.
him and his family, but he was doing what a firefighter would do in an incident like that. He made sure he was protecting his family, and he lost his life. And I'm really sorry for that. And then the two females that were hurt. Really quick, because we all know what happened from there. I want to bring up the picture that we've all seen. And if there was any divine intervention on this or a sixth sense, it was President Trump himself. That's the picture of him standing at the podium, and they caught the bullet as it passed by.
Can you zoom in on that at all?
I don't know if I can, because I just saved it abruptly because we were quick. I apologize. But if you
Okay.
haven't seen the picture, you can find it anywhere. It shows the trail of the
Yeah.
bullet coming past, and a split second, a millisecond before the kid pulled the trigger, he looked to the right to look at a billboard, like Alex was explaining to me on pre-show, to show statistics. And that's how it ended up grazing his ear rather than going above his right ear and below his left ear, would have killed him instantly. And that's probably the most miraculous part of the story that I know so far. And at that time, you saw him freeze. And at that time, that's when you heard "get down" from the Secret Service. And he promptly did. One thing I want to bring up about that Secret Service detail is the detail that President Trump had that day is not his normal detail. The director of the Secret Service pulled his normal detail off of him and put him with Jill Biden, who was campaigning in Pittsburgh, which is only about 45 minutes away, that morning. So basically, President Trump had his second string in there that day. Now, did they do a good job? Yes, they did. I'm not saying that at all. But now, when we talked about earlier, that's why maybe comms weren't set up correctly. That's why maybe communication was off, is because it was a new team that he's not normally with. So there was a lot of things that happened that day that could have made it worse. Something we were talking about earlier, guys, I want to get your opinion on something. We live in a time where media goes one way or the other. and we know which, I'm not going to name any alphabet news organizations, but they lean right, they lean left, and there's several of them out there. Imagine if the Secret Service snipers would have caught wind of this as the shooter was climbing up there with a gun, which they would have been well within their right to eliminate that threat before he got a shot off. Imagine how the media, right or left, would have spun that. And I will say, especially the left, how they would have had a field day of how a onlooker was killed by Secret Service at a Trump rally. That's something I thought about today. What do you guys think about that?
It's interesting. I'll just mention this first, and then Josh, I'm going to let you speak on this. So currently, what is Department of Homeland Security? That's what DHS is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So currently, DHS policy forbids any preemptive use of force. I don't know if it's Biden's policy. I'd have to fact check that, but I'm going to roll with it for right now. They denied the Trump campaign multiple requests for increased security and security detail.
I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the comment. I did hear about that. And then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running on the independent side. I don't know exactly which party. There's so many of them now, and they denied him Secret Service protection initially at all. Now, since this happened, he does have Secret Service security for his rallies, but I'm sure it's minimal compared to what President Trump or President Biden would have. But thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so that would have been
It makes sense that like you would not give first rate to a former president. You would give like the best to the current president. So I can totally understand that. But they did reroute a lot of people to Jill Biden's. What was she doing out there?
She had a campaign in Pittsburgh. She was basically campaigning for Joe because he can't. I'm not afraid to say it. And she was having a rally in Pittsburgh, which is about 45 minutes away from Butler. And so they pulled his main detail off to go support her, along with her normal detail. And then basically Trump had his second string in there. Not to say they didn't do a great job. I think they did. However, that might have been some of the disconnect on why communications between local police department and something else too. I talked to a friend at work today, and he said, when you do so many rallies like that, basically on a daily basis, and nothing happens, you get complacent. And so, you're kind of just going through the motions in their eyes. So you have to be reactive. But, international health coach, that's a great point, that a preemptive use of force is not allowed, and their rules of engagement may have not allowed them to shoot first, so to speak. But if they would have, that would have been a field day for the far left media. Even the people in the View, let's say that, since they're so controversial, especially everything Trump, it would have been something of a 20-year-old kid pulling a prank at a Trump rally was shot in the head by Trump's Secret Service detail. So this could have went so many ways. I mean, of course, the worst case scenario and have been the saddest day in modern day history is former President Trump would have been killed.
I don't care like what your politics is. Like, any type of assassination attempt is just vile, in my opinion. Like whether you support the candidate, whether you don't. Thanks International Health Coach for clearing up that policies. That does make a lot of sense. There still are some lingering questions as to how an individual is able to roam around an area that's supposed to be secured without at least being engaged or not necessarily using lethal use of force. But you're telling me that somebody's not going to come and ask this guy, hey, what's going on, what's your intent here? But going to your point, Kevin, it's this is a good example of if you play out multiple scenarios, how the kind of media machine really will skew things one way or the other. And the biggest thing people need to remember is that, like many things that we consume every day, the news is a manufactured product, just like everything else. So it goes through a certain manufacturing process before it is then presented and put out. So always keep that in mind. And that's why you always have to leverage multiple news sources to find what that sort of objective fact is. Because especially in today's modern media environment, the sensationalism, it's just so skewed one way or the other that it's hard to decipher like what the real fact and event is versus like what's people's perspective that they're trying to enforce upon you. So it's
Yeah.
really, really important to do your own research.
You know, and that's a great point. You know, and you've got to pick and choose and learn to decipher facts from clickbait or the but then that's also why it's also important, I think, and that's why I wanted to do this show, because it kind of not goes along with the series we've been doing, but it shows the importance of having a community of guys, because it is time to come together. This stuff's got to stop. The left hating the right hating the left, Antifa hating whoever, all this stuff that's culminating in America. At the end of the day, right, left, whatever your beliefs are, we're still Americans. We still have a duty to ourselves to live our best life because we were fortunate enough to get presented to it. But that's why men's groups and having support channels, I think, is so important. And it kind of goes along in a way, in my crazy mind, how it works, of the importance of men's groups, tribes, the support groups that we can help come together. And you don't have to be a lone wolf like this demented kid that tried to kill a former president, or a lot of these other people that are out there. You get around with like-minded people, and you surround yourself with people that want to win and that can help you win, or trying to win, and you can get there. Political beliefs don't mean shit in our group, and I will never let them come in our group, because we're on a path to success as to be the best men we can be. And so that's why a group like Men of Now is so important. Don't you guys agree?
That's a great point. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's absolutely fantastic. Like when I'm just thinking through the rest of this year, because it's going to be wild. But through the rest of this year, how are you going to navigate the ups, downs, lefts, rights, diagonals, like all the ridiculousness that's going to go on? And it's just this year, but it's going to be every year. It's going to be all the time. You never know. And when you have a supportive network and community, then you have people to lean on to help continue to guide you in the path that you want to get to.
Yeah, and building on what we both have said, it's just more mission critical than ever now, because again, it's a long time between now in November and now in the end of the year. A lot can happen, right? Who knows? We may not even get Trump versus Biden. Both candidates may be replaced at some point, but all of that is pretty much like irrelevant, because if you're focused on your task, on your mission, you want to make sure that you're going to be a success no matter who's in office and what's going on in the external factors, because there's always so much that's out of your control. But as to Kevin's point, if you're, especially in this time and era, if you're going to try and go out and ramble it on yourself and, just be that lone wolf out there, really just trying to take on the world, it's not going to work out for you. That's where you need, again, other folks that, one, have your blind spots covered, but also, two, can help give you the proper insight, as well as help you leverage your own skills in directions that you may not even thought were possible. So that's where, especially now in this day and age, it's more mission critical than ever to, come together, but also find a group, find a good tribe. And very fortunate, to be a part of the Men of Now tribe, where again, even though we have our own collective, we do collaborate with other groups and things as well. But it's always good to have that home base where, again, everybody's working on a continual mission and goal of pursuing what their goals and their interests are, and helping each other out along that pathway. So that's just kind of, the biggest sort of takeaway from this is hey, just kind of Trump had his, security team and his detail team, help him out in that situation. It's kind of a metaphor for broader life, because again, things are going to come at you from unexpected angles that you're not going to have any clues, right? There's people actively working against you that you don't even know. It's not necessarily anything personal. It just could be because of, you just happen to be in their way, or you're doing something that's opposed to what it is that they believe in. So it's more important than ever to, kind of get your own team together. So that way your blind spots are covered, but also you can really help maximize your potential.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, it's time for us to go over behind the paywall for our guys and have our closed door meeting. Anybody want to close with anything else? I thought it was a great show. I know we went off course with the series, but with what's going on in America, it's something we need to address. Justin Waller said something that stuck with me a long time ago. He said, I'm putting myself in a position where I'm going to do good, whether doesn't matter who's president, doesn't matter who's vice president, doesn't matter who's on the news or not. I'm living for me, and I'm doing my life unapologetically. And that's how every man should look at it. It doesn't matter who's president. We're going to win. It doesn't matter what gas prices are. We can make it happen. It doesn't matter what inflation is. We can do it. and we can put ourselves in that position. And if you have a team behind you, it makes it a lot fucking easier.
Oh, 100%. No, I'm right there with you. I think you guys have summarized it very well. And that was the title of the whole thing. What you didn't know about the Trump's assassination attempt. We just wanted to put a positive spin on it, because that's all you can do when bad things happen is what can you learn from it? How can you be better? And building a good support team that is going in the same direction that you want to go is the best thing you can do. If you guys do want to join the meeting, hit me up on Instagram, all the information down below, or join the community. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. Until next week.